Okay, so let's talk OnePlus 15. If you've heard of how good Chinese phones have gotten lately, this isn't just a tasting of that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wick. It's been a long time.
I'd like it tasting.
But also proof of how complicated the journey has been. See, this company has gone through so many phases. First, the plan was to challenge the establishment, and it did for a good 6 generations. The 7 Pro was that time where Harvey Dent says it best.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And then generations 8 and 9 were just lost in flagship pricing with mediocre results. I think generation 10, 11, and 12 served to fix the pricing and polish a lot of the experience. So much so that in my opinion, the OnePlus 13 was easily one of the best phones of the year. This OnePlus 15 is a lot of those things, but then also some less and some more. I'm Jaime Rivera, and let me tell you why in my full review. All right, at $900, this is a really interesting value proposition, though with the complication that no US carrier picked it up, so you're gonna have to pay for it upright, and let's just say you might or might not want to. Take hardware, for example. OnePlus has spent more than a decade giving us spin-offs of other Oppo phones, or sometimes iPhone clones, but this was all secondary given the insane bang for the buck you were getting. This year I've heard more than a few of you claim that it looks like an iPhone, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to agree. If anything, I'd say that the camera hump looks a lot more like the Pixel 10 Pro, but with this OnePlus approach being far less pronounced, making it a lot more stable on a table. I mean, yes, it borrows on the radius curves of the iPhone that pretty much every other manufacturer has done. It's the first OnePlus phone that I remember to go fully flat, which I admit I prefer. The unit I'm reviewing is the $1,000 variant in this very interesting sandstorm finish, which I do find pretty unique. I'm no scientist to tell you if this micro arc oxidation finish is superior as OnePlus is claiming, but I will tell you that it does add a ton of visual character and the feel like nothing else that I've ever held, as it reminds me more of ceramic. It spent the last 2 weeks without a case, and there are 0 fingerprints, smudges, or scratches all around. And yes, I've read the comparisons drawn to the Oppo Find X9 Pro and calling it superior, which I mean, it should be. It's a lot more expensive. Think of the OnePlus 15 as more of the base Find X9, but with different specifications. Here we're talking Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, options for more than enough RAM and storage, probably one of the biggest batteries you can get on a phone of this footprint with crazy fast charging and accessories included in the box. You can get faster and more efficient Wi-Fi thanks to an in-house chip, the latest Bluetooth, and full US compatibility with the exception of Wi-Fi calling on T-Mobile. It's even got an IP rating that I hadn't even heard of. And sure, I do wish it supported magnetic charging without a case, but more for the accessories than anything, as this battery is the least of my concerns. I'd say that display is then another thing I really like about this phone. I'm not going to bore you with all the certifications. What matters is that the bezels are tiny, pretty much matching that in-your-face feel you get from the latest iPhones. Still, we're talking 1 to 120 Hz refresh rate or 165 Hz during gameplay, along with accurate color reproduction. We have no peak brightness data as the company is shifting more to HBM stats, which at 1800 nits are higher than that of the 13 and have been pretty great in my testing. And also the speakers do a great job at completing the content consumption combo.
But the thing is, what happens when Apple goes back to the drawing board?
Now, the software story is probably the most interesting because even if Oxygen OS continues to drift more into the visuals of Oppo's Color OS, it does include key differences that I appreciate. It brings all the benefits of Android 16 like contextual notifications, and yeah, some of the benefits of iOS like squared widgets and dynamic island animations. Yeah, I know. I mean, even the alert slider is now gone in favor of the plus key that you've seen on an iPhone near you. Still, the things that are uniquely OnePlus and surely Oppo are the things that I like the most. I mean, the new Android 16 multitasking gestures were really started on the OnePlus Open. We also get the side menu that brings easy access to files and quick multitasking, and then AI features like Mindspace let you consolidate screenshots and voice notes notes into actionable items, though you have to enable it on the plus key for it to fully work, as 3-finger screenshots make Mindspace optional and button combination screenshots go directly to the camera roll for whatever reason. Plus Mind is actually the OnePlus approach to AI, though powered by Gemini, even if separately. And yeah, I know this is all confusing, but I'll report back on just how useful it is in the future. Still, no worries, Gemini is fully here from the power button. And then there are other AI tricks like AI Recorder that's pretty useful, and AI Portrait Glow to fix photos that came out with poor lighting. OnePlus is clearly pushing its own agenda in the spectrum, so I'll let you know just how useful it is whenever I have a chance to look back at this phone. But then, in typical OnePlus fashion, the main priority is a fast and smooth experience, and yeah, that's all here. The experience of using this phone on a day-to-day is what you'd expect from a flagship, and seriously, this battery life is just surreal. One of my tests went way beyond 2 days, and yeah, even I can't believe it. I spent a good deal of time testing it on gaming controllers, and yeah, it's the ideal gaming experience in many ways. I did hear some of my friends call out that the phone is getting warm every now and then, but the cryo velocity cooling worked fine for me, as I really haven't had any problems with it. Even phone calls and connectivity were pretty reliable during my testing on Google Fi, which is pretty much T-Mobile, by the way. Now, as for photography, yeah, that's where things get a bit controversial. We do have the trifecta of cameras, but oddly, OnePlus chose smaller sensors on this phone compared to the OnePlus 13 and no more Hasselblad tuning. But then that being said, I think the best way to understand Detail Max is to consider what Apple does with its Fusion cameras, where it takes a 12 megapixel shot, a 48 megapixel shot, and then fuses them into a 24 megapixel result with better dynamic range and detail, though on this phone, it's 26 megapixels. But then in typical OnePlus fashion, there is a catch. It only works in daylight, and only from the primary, it seems, but then selfies were 32 megapixels, but only in landscape? I know, it is confusing. During the day, though, these photos are fantastic. Whether it's 26 megapixels or 12, the results were very sharp. The color was even that warm Hasselblad color science that was supposedly no longer here. There is clearly a lot of processing compensating for the lack of footprint in the sensors, particularly in the roll-off in the shallow depth of field, but it was pretty well done. I spent most of my time at 2x and 3.5x, and I have to say, I like that this phone does not lose detail even on the optical crop pipelines. Night photos is where this effect is shown most. The phone takes each photo in seconds, but then you'll see a lot of sharpness on whatever it focuses on, and then the back is almost like a composite if the subjects were moving around. It's a creative way to turn challenging moments into usable photos, so listen, I'll take it. That said, zoom in too much and yeah, all the detail is lost, so this might not necessarily be the best phone for a concert. Selfies and portraits are also a pleasant surprise because we have a wider field of view, and this phone does a fantastic job at separation and detail, and that's both during the day and also at night. And then video is an interesting topic. I do have to say I notice a ton of improvements in color stabilization and sharpness. I also have to praise the company for including extras like log video if you enable Pro Video mode, which extends even up to 4K at 120, which is pretty unique and insane, but this is where the catches begin. Log video only seems to work on the primary sensor, which yeah, that means it won't work on the selfie camera, so there goes consistency in vlogging with your choice for color science. It's been the OnePlus way of giving you great ideas, though with buts here and there. That said, I will say selfie video isn't bad, and especially given the wider field of view making it here as well. I mean, they're not iPhone quality results just yet from both camera implementations, but boy, has the company evolved in a positive way. What's left to solve is really to be able to bring consistency to what every single one of these cameras can do, which will only make it easier for you to not have to be fumbling with what this camera can do or the other. To conclude, where do I even begin? The OnePlus 15 is one of the best examples of hardware craftsmanship with all the specs we nerds could love, plus a software experience that blurs a bit of the lines between iOS visuals and Android functionality, and a camera system that, well, brought some controversial downgrades in numbers, but made up for it in processing. So yeah, as I said in the beginning, this isn't necessarily the best representation of how good phones have gotten in China, but it is a good tasting for sure, a la John Wick.
Dessert.
Dessert.
Guys, I've spent every single generation complaining about the camera or the hardware or the price versus execution or even the IP rating. Ever since the OnePlus 12, I ran out of reasons to not recommend this phone. The 13 was great, and the 15, I would say, is the magnum opus. Surely, I would have loved an equivalent to the Oppo Find X9 Pro, especially for that camera teleconverter, but then this phone wouldn't cost $900. I'd say this is a pretty good balance for even the most demanding of nerds. And yes, I do know that in cases like the United States, you won't have the carrier benefits that other phones get. But if you're in the market for the best bang for the buck flagship that's pretty much priced like a premium phone, this is it. I just find it crazy that there are no more Pros or Ultras in the name to brag about, and yet it surely makes up for it in execution. Let me know if you agree with my assessment in the comments below, and while you're at it, please like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments, as I'm sure you've seen me try to respond to as many as I can. Trust me, I try. Also, follow me on social media as more behind-the-scenes work and testing on these phones happens there. By the way, our podcast with Josh is now live. Our new show is called Technically There, and episode 2 is either live or about to be. Would really appreciate your support with a subscribe there as well, along with your feedback, as this show is built with you in mind. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.